40.
Yes, I'm back. I'm back. Oh, man. You know what it is. You know what time it is. Maybe you don't know what time it is. Like, really, you've just been listening to this radio station for 2 weeks, and you just got really used to Mike Gallagher in my spot. And you almost got to hear him again. This is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That is moi. Thank you for joining me today and making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. I've been out for like 1.5 weeks. My cousin had a wedding in Jamaica, and that's where I've been. I was just gone. And I didn't realize I was going to be gone for as long as I was. Otherwise, this would have gone very differently. I was gone for a while. And there is so much that happened while I was gone. And we're going to get to all of that, all this stuff, because I'm like, wow, I only have an hour to cover all of this stuff. SEC Media Days today. Serena wins Wimbledon. Andy Murray wins Wimbledon. British Open at the end of the week. Kevin Durant is somehow, some way, a Golden State Warrior. Life just changed while I was gone. And we have to talk about all of this. Home Run Derby tonight. Baseball All-Star Game tomorrow night. Starting pitchers have been announced. You just got everything. We've got everything. We've got it all. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do, I'd like to tell you about where you could reach us and where we could reach you. I highly recommend our social media. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Friend us, like us, follow us there. You can check us out at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can get the links to all of our social media pages. You can listen to the show at hotnewstalkradio.com as well. You can check us out on the Facebook page. There is a little radio plug-in, little radio icon in the bottom left corner of the page. You can click on that, stream the show live from Facebook. You can stream us on YouTube live, which means you get to see whatever it is that my face looks like to you right now on YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. You can also check our archived videos. We never, ever call them old. Make sure to have a look. So before I really jump into this, because I have been gone for so long, I was in Jamaica, okay? And I wasn't like at a resort. I wasn't in a hotel. I wasn't at the beach. I was with family up in the mountains of Jamaica. For those of you who are aware that Jamaica had mountains, it does. And they're beautiful and it's great, but I had no data up there. No signal, nothing. Nothing at all. Okay, I was just enjoying vacation. I was cut off from life. It's a great thing to do if you can try it. But in this particular job where I have to know what's happening, yeah, huge disadvantage to not know that Kevin Durant became a Warrior in my absence. And not just that, the entire NBA changed. I got on a plane and the NBA was one way. I got off a plane and the entire league changed while I was gone. The Spurs changed. The Warriors changed. The Thunder changed. The Heat changed. The Knicks changed. The Bulls changed. The entire league changed while I was gone. It's literally like Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future, where he goes back in time and he tries to change the future. And when he comes back, he doesn't recognize everything because of how much changing he's done. It's like that. I went one place and I came back and the world was just different. Derrick Rose is a Knick. Joakim Noah is a Knick. How does that work? Kevin Durant bails on the Thunder, goes to the Warriors. How does that work? A team, the best regular season team in the history of the NBA, adds Kevin Durant at the small price of losing Harrison Barnes? Yeah, I would say that that's an upgrade. Would you not? Tim Duncan retired today. Manu Ginobili retired. The Spurs are a different team. Dwayne Wade leaves the Heat. He's in Chicago, finally getting paid what he's been worth. I mean, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with Dwayne Wade being overpaid at this point in his career because he was severely underpaid for the rest of it. Just to see what loyalty got you. To see what loyalty got you. The league changed. And if this is the NBA that we have to look forward to, right? Like, because here's the thing about the NBA is we talk about how sports are like nothing else in life. There's no contract negotiation that works in life quite like they work in sports. But as it turns out, sports aren't like any other sports either. You look at the number of NFL players mad and upset at the money being handed out to basketball players you've never heard of. We're talking about Portland, the Trailblazers retaining Alan Crabb for a significant amount of money. Mike Conley, who I think is a good point guard, and I have stood here at this microphone many times and talked about how I like Mike Conley. I like his game. I think that he's the perfect game manager point guard, and you need those. I mean, not everybody gets to have Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose. Sometimes you just need a game manager. And the way that Memphis has designed itself around those two bigs, Randolph and Gasol, you didn't need a point guard that scores in bunches. You just needed a guy who was good. But Mike Conley has the highest contract in the history of the NBA. Now, I will advocate how good that guy is, but he's not that good. He's not $153 million worth of good. He's pretty good, but he's not $153 million worth of good. But the cap shot up, the short contracts, which we always knew were going to have their way in the NBA. At some point, that was going to have an effect. And it does. Guys get to walk away from teams and just go where they want to go, which I think mostly is either where they pay you more money or where they get you a ring. So I don't know if we've seen the end of loyalty in basketball. We are probably never going to see contracts like that in the NFL, no matter how angry NFL guys get. We're never going to see contracts that big for guys you've never heard of in the NFL. The NFL makes more money, but their rosters are larger, so there's more to spread around, and you only get 8 home games a year. Now, all of that stuff plays a part. And then internationally, the NFL is not as big either. So you're just not drawing in the financial numbers per player that the NBA is. And Major League Baseball doesn't have a cap if you're going to compare those two things. So NFL guys that are now upset, sorry, you played the wrong sport. I apologize for that. I'm sorry you played the wrong sport. That's been a fact for a while, is if you got into sports to make money, football is not the sport. Your contracts have always been smaller. Your money has always been less. Your contracts have never been guaranteed. To be mad about that now, next time when you have a collective bargaining agreement, and thank goodness there's 5 more years left on it, because I know players are going to be holding out. There's going to be a strike or some kind of intense work stoppage the next time we have this. But next time, don't just take whatever it is that the owners give you. Probably work that leverage of football being the most popular game in this country a little bit. Just probably try that a little bit harder next time. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I want to talk about Tim Duncan retiring, one of those moves that definitely changed the NBA. I wanted to talk more about Kevin Durant, but I was thinking about it, and I was like, really, I'm coming late to this party about everything that has been said about Kevin Durant. It's already been said, right? Like, everybody is mad at Kevin Durant for leaving. You leave not just for a team, but the team that beat you in the Western Conference Finals, which I don't have a problem with, really. I understand you come out looking kind of like a punk, but I don't really have a huge problem with it. Now, if that team won the finals and you went to that team, I mean, I've never seen a more blatant sign of ring hopping than that, outside of everything that Ray Allen did coming down to the end of his career. And even after his career is over, all the teams that he would just call up this season and go, hey, you guys need a shooter? Because I'm a shooter. That's something that I do. I think I do it fairly well. Can I hop on board? I don't know if anybody was ring chasing more than Ray Allen. That's the most blatant example of that I have ever seen. Ray Allen. But if the Warriors had won a championship and then Kevin Durant went to them, I don't know how I'd feel about that. But this is not a huge problem for me. It is not overwhelmingly hurting my soul. I just look at this and go like, why watch basketball though? Because I'm a Wizards fan, and that team has one title in its entire existence, and they were the Bullets when that happened. So what am I watching basketball for if you can just easily get Kevin Durant after 73 victories? Because we talk about teams climbing the mountain. That used to be the appeal. I mean, that is still the appeal. That climbing the mountain, you have to work for this. And there is a little bit of a misnomer for the Warriors, that the Warriors didn't work to get to where they were. They struggled. They struggled because Mark Jackson was their coach, and then they switched coaches. They got a better coach, and they had a year where they ran into some teams injured, and they won a title. But Kevin Durant and his personal struggle, he didn't want to struggle with the Thunder anymore. He felt like they struggled enough. They went to an NBA Finals, they lost, and then he broke his foot, and then Westbrook tore his meniscus, and they just had so much stuff happen on that team. I don't know that he wanted to particularly struggle to get back to a finals again. He wanted to cruise to a final. And the problem that I have with that is none, because if it was that the owners didn't want that to happen, then when it comes to bargaining, try not to get whipped by the Players Association at the bargaining table. But I digress. I want to talk about Tim Duncan, because this is a particularly interesting time in my life, because I'm 26 years old. So a lot of the players that I grew up watching are retiring or have retired in recent years. And this is only going to happen once. Like, the next group of guys that I really see retiring, like the great group of players that really will be retiring, will be players that I've just been watching in my adulthood. There's kind of a special bond with watching a group of players that you idolized, and then as you got older, realized, you know what, these guys are just human and they have to work hard to get to where they're going. There's something very special about watching that person who's gone from to you being idol to being just a guy, seeing that person retire because they are just human. Like, that's the punch in the face, the realization there that person is just a human being. And Tim Duncan is possibly the guy that maybe you suspected that he wasn't a human being for the longest time, because there is nothing human about that guy. His facial expressions, you got nothing. The way that he did everything the right way almost didn't seem human. Like, the Tim Duncan, 19 years with one team, 5 championships with one team. Like, you look at the way that the NBA is right now. Look at it. You're never going to see that again, I'm sure. And not even just because of the shorter contracts and because you have guys jumping around all over the place. You're not going to see that again because there's just not many Tim Duncans out there. The way that Tim Duncan approached the game, there wasn't a ton of flash. And you could argue, of his generation, Tim Duncan was the best. Yes, ahead of Kobe. And not just by counting the number of rings, because I don't like to do that. I don't like ring counting as a metric, because role players could get more rings in a lot of ways more easily than the main guy on a team can. And you play the position and you play the game differently, and you got to get a little lucky. If you don't wind up in the right organization, where are you? Like, where's Kawhi Leonard if he's not a Spur? Kawhi Leonard could easily be Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Very easily. When they came in the league as very similar guys. Long, defensive, couldn't shoot. They're the same guy. Kawhi just wound up in San Antonio. So you can't count rings on this. Why I would take Duncan over Kobe is, and we saw it at the end of Kobe's career, the NBA changes. And as the NBA changes, There were times when Kobe's game fit, like when he was with Shaq, and there were times where it didn't fit. You didn't give Kobe a good, solid, big. He really couldn't do much. I mean, great. But like Kobe had limitations to his game that you blatantly saw when you took away Shaq. You blatantly saw when you took away Pau Gasol. And that's the reason why we thought they were going to be much better than they were when they acquired Dwight Howard. Because you give Kobe a big guy that can attract attention, that he can pick and roll with, you have something terrifying. And then Dwight ended up not working out, but you take away that guy from Kobe Bryant, his place in the NBA doesn't fit. That wasn't something that you saw with Duncan. Duncan was the main option at one point in his career. The Spurs ran a play that might as well just have been called get out the way. Give the ball to Tim and everybody just get out of the way, which they used to beat the Nets in 2004. Just beat them into submission. Literally just gave the ball to Tim Duncan and Tim went to work. It was a sweep and it was still a great finals because of just how dominant Tim was. But Tim Duncan adapted his game. As the game changed and you ended up in a more free-flowing NBA, Tim Duncan showed his value by being a great passer, and the fact that his numbers never changed. He was 20 and 10 almost his whole career. Like outside of this last season and his rookie season, Tim Duncan was 20 and 10 all the way through. It's crazy. As the league changed, we shoot more threes. That team shot more threes. I mean, the season before the Warriors broke out, it was the Spurs changing the look of the league. I mean, they adapted to this thing in a way they were ahead of the curve. And Tim Duncan fit right in. Like, they didn't have to reduce Tim Duncan to make this work. He was still the cornerstone of the team. Like, when the Spurs won, they won on him. And in that game 6 against Miami, they lost on him too, because of how pivotal he was on that team. You know, and I grew up in San Antonio, like watching Tim Duncan. He's the hero in that city, and for very, very good reason. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. You're talking about Tim Duncan and his incredible career as the big fella retires today. And we are going to get into some of the news out of SEC Media Days a little later on. We're going to talk some Wimbledon. Obviously, every time Serena Williams wins another major, we have to talk about. We just have to do like a legacy check with her. Like, where is the legacy there? Because it just keeps moving up. She's very close to winning more majors than Steffi Graf. I mean, we are at an incredible point in her career as well. Andy Murray won Wimbledon and becomes the first Englishman to do so, win Wimbledon twice in a 4-year span, which is crazy to think about. Really, like, that's your tennis tournament, and you've only had one guy able to really. I can't even say dominate it, but really come out on top consistently. It's only been one guy. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But what an incredible career for Tim Duncan. I watched Tim Duncan play as a rookie in the playoffs. And I don't even remember who they were playing. But Tim Duncan, I believe it was game 2. It was definitely a first round series. Tim Duncan took over the game. You know, he had something like 23-9 in that game. And I don't know that I've ever seen that before or since. I was also 8, so definitely didn't see it before. But since, I don't know that I've seen anybody as a rookie that proficient already. Like, Tim Duncan was the guy very early on that he was going to be. His ceiling was incredibly high, and he played like it, and he's retiring like it. Like, Tim Duncan is retiring now He took his time to come to this decision, and there's not going to be a farewell tour for Tim Duncan. If I had to choose between Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant, I think it's pretty obvious by now. I choose Tim Duncan. But even the way that both of those guys exited the league, Kobe Bryant did the farewell tour. He couldn't play every night, but he'd show up at all the major cities, all the major rivalries, so that everyone could say one last goodbye to Kobe Bryant. And that says a lot about Kobe. Tim Duncan's going to have one press conference with Greg Popovich later this week, and that's it. Goodbye, Timmy. We'll talk about SEC Media Days coming up around the corner here on Hot 1240. Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Next.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business? Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock. Call me now, 875-5621.
He's a U.S. military veteran, 27 years of assessment experience, and a proven conservative record.
Sterling Jeton is the only candidate equipped to run the Assessor Properties Office.
You have trusted us to serve. We trust Sterling Jeton to continue serving you with integrity and a commitment to conservative principles.
I'm Claude Ramsey.
And I'm Bill Bennett.
And I'm Sterling Jeton, and I'm asking for your vote on the March 1st Republican ballot.
Paid for by friends to elect Sterling Jeton. Pam McAllister, Treasurer.
I'm going to Carter Shooting Supply.
Carter Shooting Supply?
That's right, Carter Shooting Supply. They're having a great sale on all of their guns right now, and it's name brands like Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Springfield, their AR-15s. They've got the hottest gun in the land right now, the Sky 9mm. Man, it comes in all the cool colors. If you're an Alabama fan, they've got crimson. If you're a big orange fan, they've got an orange one. You know, all the women are loving the pink one in Tiffany blue. Plus, it has a lifetime warranty replacement. If the gun is stolen, all you need is your police report or receipt, and they'll replace it free. It has a 60-day full money-back guarantee. That's Carter Shooting Supply. They're in Harrison right there at 6210 Highway 58.
Are they online?
Yes, they are. It's cartershootingsupply.com, or give them a call, 423-344-1099. Now, this sale's not going to last too long, so you need to hurry up and get there. And they do have a great indoor shooting facility. You can get your Tennessee handgun carry permit also. That's Carter Shooting Supply, 423-344-1099.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Protests breaking out across the country in response to the shootings in Minnesota, Louisiana, and Dallas. And now in Chattanooga, people gathered on Brainerd Road at the corner of Moore Road. They say that they were protesting the recent shootings, but not only that, they say they're protesting the injustice that's occurred over the past few years. A prayer vigil was also held at Olivet Baptist Church for recent acts of violence. Sheriff Hammond had statements about it saying, "Make no mistake about it, it can happen here if we don't get a handle on folks understanding that with the freedoms and the rights that we have here comes a responsibility to use them wisely," he said. "We need to ferret out those who take the law into their own hands and do such a barbarous and hideous act," referring to what happened in Dallas. On Sunday at Cannon Avenue at 11:30, a robbery left one man pistol whipped and another man pierced by bullets. One was 27, the other 49. The circumstances of the robbery are currently not known. The police are still investigating. Both men were taken to the hospital and are expected to survive. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Becoming partly sunny out there through the afternoon. A few widely scattered showers and storms popping up. Highs upper 80s to near 90 tonight. Lows 70 to 72. Near 90 with a few more widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms for Tuesday. A little hotter, lower 90s for the midweek. CarMax is America's #1 used car retailer with no hackle prices and a 5-day money-back guarantee. CarMax is the stress-free way to buy your next car. That's CarMax. Drive what's possible. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook from the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
So my favorite part about SEC Media Days is ESPN doesn't know how to cover SEC Media Days. I mean, there were some bad questions today. Obviously, I'm here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, so I am not in Birmingham, Alabama for the SEC Media Days, which is a little saddening because they're really close. Like, that's a hop and a skip away from here. But I will say this about the SEC Media Days. They bring out the most in reporters BS questions. Like, just the most. Like that moment where you realize, like, I just have to ask stuff and force another human being to say stuff. Some of these questions are just ridiculous, mostly because you have coaches preparing for an upcoming college season. And what are the questions that are being asked? The questions being asked are with regards to players that are already gone. Players that are in the NFL right now. Who cares? When I want to know about Dak Prescott, I will tune into the NFL Network and watch them whenever they're talking about the Cowboys, whenever it is that comes up. If that's what I wanted to know. I don't want to know about Dak Prescott. Don't care. Don't care. Okay? People being interviewed today, this Monday here at SEC Media Days, Auburn Tigers head coach Gus Malzahn, players Carl Lawson and Montravius Adams. Then later on in the day was Jim McElwain, David Sharp, and Jared Davis, Marcus May being the players. Vanderbilt Commodores being interviewed today as well. Head coach Derek Mason and players Ralph Webb, Zach Cunningham, and Oren Burks. And they were just getting loud, like awful questions. Just so many questions about guys who are now in the NFL. So you mean guys who are now no longer participating in the SEC? Wonderful. And you could ask them such fantastic questions as, hold on. Ask them all of these fantastic questions, right? Which I confused the questions here. There it is. How is Mississippi State going to move on from Dak Prescott? Did you decide not to suspend those players because your first game is Clemson? How good is Ole Miss's D-line now that Robert Kimdichie is gone? Are you glad Mark Richt is gone because he has beaten you? These questions were for Gus Malzahn, the head coach of Auburn. Like, how is Gus Malzahn going to answer a question about Mississippi State and Dak Prescott? Honestly, Why does he care that Mark Richt is gone? Like, seriously, this is going to change his preparation at all? The other SEC teams aren't going to change. They're going to be the same teams. Seriously? I mean, I just don't understand some of these questions. When you talk about the media mailing it in, and we do sometimes, but like sometimes you do it because like right now, it's summer. It's just hard to find stuff to talk about. It's difficult to find things to talk about. It is summertime, and quite frankly, I checked the sports calendar today, and outside of summer league games, there are no games on today of any sport. There's the home run derby. There's some summer league. That's it. I mean, of any of the sports that you care about. That's it. That's all that's on. So no wonder ESPN, SEC Media Days crew, is asking questions like, what is faster, a falcon, a cheetah, or a sailfish? Answer, who cares? Really? This is ESPN. Honest to goodness, are you even trying? You just showed up to SEC Media Days with no questions because we all know what date it is. It's on the calendar all year. Okay, there's an SEC media website that all of us have access to. If you go to the website, it'll tell you SEC Media Days start July 11th and continue to the end of the week. You can find this on the calendar. So there's no way you saw this date coming and thought, here's the question that I'm going to ask the head coach of Auburn. Is it easy for Mississippi State to move on from their quarterback? Why does that matter? How would he have any particular insight that you or I could not also have to that question? And would that question not be better directed to the head coach of Mississippi State? Like, now you're just not even trying. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I don't understand. I don't understand. Listen to us on the TuneIn Radio app. Again, that's TuneIn Radio app. It's absolutely free on your favorite app store in your mobile device, whether that's an iPhone or an Android phone. Make sure to check it out. Check us out. Simply search Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio in the app, or just search Hot News Talk Radio. We're the first thing that comes up. Give us a favorite, press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. Story here about Draymond Green. Draymond Green arrested for assault after punching somebody in Michigan State, where he is an alum. And at first, it was just a civilian. That's what the report was. He just punched a civilian, which we know Draymond Green to be a volatile person, just reactionary. But Draymond Green doesn't strike me as a bad guy, like just a guy that's just going to punch you in the face to punch you in the face. Usually, Draymond Green gets provoked first and then, punches LeBron James in the undercarriage. That's how it usually goes. Draymond Green he punched a civilian. It was another guy. He's just a fight with another person. But it turns out that he didn't just punch any random civilian. He slapped, which makes this way different. Way different. If he punched that guy, then that's a fight. That guy said something to you, pushed you, touched you in some kind of way that you deemed to be inappropriate, and you felt like you had to meet that with a fist. If you slap him, you felt like you had to let that guy know you were his daddy. Just plain and simple on that one. He slapped the guy. And that guy is Michigan State University defensive back Jermaine Edmondson. So he slapped a football player. Because I was going to talk about how, who just picks a fight with Draymond Green? Draymond Green's a pretty big guy. If I had to make a list of people that I wouldn't want to fight, he is one of those people. Okay? I mean, I've seen what he does. I'm not trying to be hit anywhere near the family jewels. I don't want anything. I don't want no parts of Draymond Green. Okay? Why would you look at Draymond Green and think that that's a guy that you could fight? You're a football player. Football players are crazy, man. Like, not kind of crazy. Crazy. Charles Barkley has always said, football players, he's got friends in every sport. Baseball friends, basketball friends, football friends. And it's always the football guys that can't let stuff go. So, yeah, football guy would look at Draymond Green and go, yeah, that's not a big deal. Because, like, defensive backs are typically not that big. No? Like, Darrelle Revis is my height. I'm 5'10". He's like 5'11". Darrelle Revis isn't huge. Of course, a defensive back would look at Draymond Green and go, yeah, no, I could fight that guy. 6'9", Draymond Green. Yeah, I could take him. What? No, you can't. You cut that out right now. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. And so that story broke out today in the midst of all the other craziness that's been happening. Like I told you, I came off a plane last week, and the league, the NBA changed. I'm looking at things today. Tim Duncan retired. And now Draymond Green has apparently slapped a Michigan State football player. So maybe some things never change. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Quick talk about the UFC, because the UFC is in a weird place. What is the UFC actually worth? $4 billion, apparently. They sold the UFC for $4 billion, and that was after UFC 200, where we're not sure if that was good or not. Right? You're looking at UFC 200 as a UFC fan, which I am not, but I do follow it a little bit because I do respect the sort of skill that it takes to fight somebody using a blend of different fighting styles. I respect that. I do. But I was watching the highlights of UFC 200, and I'm not sure if UFC 200 was actually good. You had the whole thing with Daniel Cormier, John Jones, and Anderson Silva. John Jones was supposed to fight Daniel Cormier. Cormier was supposed to defend his belt against the guy that he was never able to take the belt from directly. And he was looking forward to that fight with John Jones. Like, there's a video of Daniel Cormier finding out that John Jones had to be pulled out of UFC 200 for failing a drug test and basically collapsing on the ground. Like, he just didn't know emotionally what to do there. He just wanted to fight John Jones. And quite frankly, if you're a fight fan, you wanted to see him fight John Jones because A, you wanted to see him really earn it from the guy he could never beat. And B, John Jones and Daniel Cormier legitimately hate each other. Like, just actual real life hatred in a way that is, when you watch sports and you're watching guys, you know, dap each other up, high five and hug, to see every now and then two guys legitimately hate one another. It's a little refreshing, right? It's a little bit refreshing to see when they're going out there competing and Daniel Cormier is fighting John Jones. He is trying to fight John Jones. I like seeing that. And so not being able to see that fight obviously took away from it. Then you hear that they replaced him with Anderson Silva, which used to mean a lot. Like, that used to hold a lot of weight, but Anderson Silva, who was once considered the greatest, and then when you talk about the failed drug tests after that and all that other stuff that he got caught up in, I don't even know legacy-wise where Anderson Silva stacks up. I don't think you can pretend like his greatest fights didn't happen, because I watched Anderson Silva fight and thought, like, this is the best thing I've ever watched in my life. So I don't think you could pretend like that didn't happen. But at the same time, he's obviously a shell of his former self. And then on top of that, it was on short notice. He didn't really get to train for it. And so Cormier just pounded on him, wrestled a ton, beat him up, won by decision. So you had that going on for you. Then you had, in the women's division, Miesha Tate, who I thought, you know, to run this division because this whole time she's getting her tail kicked by Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's on hiatus. Ronda Rousey is not trying to get back in the octagon really anytime soon. And I thought, well, Miesha Tate might be the next big thing here. Just run the division. And then one day you have to build up to a gigantic, awesome fight with Ronda Rousey. This seems to be what we were looking for. Like, this is what was in the cards. And now she gets beat by, I don't even know who. Her last name is Nunez. I don't know what her first name is. How? So I don't know. Is that upset a good thing? Because the women's belt, since Ronda Rousey's been beaten, has changed too many hands. It's changed too many hands. You've got to have a little bit of dominance in fighting sports. I mean, not even fighting sports. Individual sports do well when somebody is just cruising. When it was Ronda Rousey, it was great. In golf, when it was Tiger Woods, that was when golf was at its best. And if somebody would just dominate golf now, it would be 10 times more enjoyable than me trying to figure out, like, is Dustin Johnson really the guy I want to roll with here in the British Open? I don't know. Maybe I just keep picking Matt Kuchar and eventually I'll be correct. I'm just guessing now. Like, there's nobody that I can go, that's my guy. I'll just pick him because he's good. You know, I like Jordan Spieth, but this year is definitely not going to be as dominant as last year. And of course, it was ridiculous to expect him to repeat that in the first place. But golf needs that. Fighting needs that. If you're an individual sport, you need that. That's the reason why women's tennis, highly entertaining to watch. We've got Serena. Men's tennis, we don't have anything. We've got a declining Roger Federer. He's still great, but he's old. And Andy Murray, which he's a good tennis player, but there's no wow factor for Andy Murray. That's where we're at in the UFC's women's division. There's nobody that comes out and dominates, that really grabs your attention. And maybe just not even in the women's division. It's just the UFC. There's nobody that's really just putting their imprint on the sport. So that's why when it sold today for $4 billion, I was a little surprised. I was very surprised because I haven't seen anything from that sport in the last few months that said, hey, this is trending upwards. This is the most exciting that this has been. It isn't. It isn't. There was a point where I thought if you had said the UFC had sold for $4 billion when Anderson Silva was at the top of his game or when John Jones was running that division, I could have told you, that makes sense. This is as popular as this is going to get. It's like a bubble. At some point, it's just going to burst, and then this isn't going to be popular anymore. Apparently, there's still some idea that the UFC is going to be incredibly popular and around for a while. And I think what's interesting about the UFC is that it's in its infancy as a major sport. And watching the UFC develop is like watching football develop in the 20s, back when they had leather helmets and stuff. There was a time where this thing looked really, really primitive. Guys would fight multiple times in a night. And now you've basically hit the big leagues, and this sport is as clean and as polished as all the other ones. And it happened so quickly that I want to know, and I seriously wonder, even though it sold for $4 billion, can it last? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, but I have no real idea. And there's no real way of telling. You just have to watch it and find out. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. Wimbledon. Serena Williams again. She has won 7 times at Wimbledon, which is just ridiculous and incredible. And watching Serena play, I think that when it comes to watching her play, one of the interesting things about her is how she wins. Because there are some people who do power really well, and there's some people who do finesse really well. Nobody really does both. Even if you look at the men's side of the game, right? Like Roger Federer is sneaky powerful. He's more powerful than he looks, but power is not his game. He's a finesse guy. Novak Djokovic, the Joker, he's power. When he hits aces, there's no way that you could have returned that. He just smokes you. Finesse, he can do it because you have to. Like, there's nobody that's just all or nothing in tennis. You do have to be at least somewhat well-rounded. But when it comes to a person who excels at both, I think that's hard to find on either side, men or women's tennis. Serena does both. Serena does both. And to the question that I have there, and I know that if you watched Pete Sampras and you watched Andre Agassi, this is going to be a ridiculous question. You've seen Federer, Federer might be the best that I've ever seen, but is Serena the greatest tennis player that ever lived? Regardless of gender. And I understand that there's the whole thing with the women's game and that it's a shorter match. I get it. But she has been so dominant for so long. Is she just not the best? And then when you include all of the double stuff that she does with Venus, like, is she just not the best? Or is that too much? Or is that something we don't necessarily want to hear? Or are we just not ready to hear that yet? Because I think that if you count everything, the doubles, the way that she plays the game, the way that she's relentless, offense, defense, the way that she serves, that on the women's side, someone that serves that consistently powerful, it's like her. Sharapova's powerful, but she's not nearly as graceful. Can you say that she's the best? Because I think you'd have to. I don't know that there's any way that's up for debate, especially when you consider she's not done. Like, she can win. She's got a few more majors left in her. Because the way that she wins, it's not. She's barely getting by. When she loses, you are legitimately surprised that she's lost. And when she wins, she's winning big. She won Wimbledon 2 straight sets, and in such a dominating fashion. Like, I'm finding trouble having words to describe it. It's so relentless, the way that she plays. I don't know if she's not the best. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose. We talked a little bit more about the NBA and just the way that it's changed. You're watching a different game. The balance of power is shifting. We've been talking about the West getting weaker for years, the East getting stronger. I don't know about all of that necessarily, but you have to think that with the Warriors sucking up some of the talent in the entire league and sucking up that talent from the West, that, and maybe things did get a little bit more even there. Because I've never seen a sport where the disparity in one conference to the other conference being that weird. Like, even if you look at the NFL, where the AFC tends to win a lot. Like, the AFC looks like the better conference. If you look at the conference from top to bottom, the AFC is more top heavy, but the NFC is deeper. There are more good teams in the NFC. AFC has got the Patriots, and then the Steelers, and then whatever revolving door of great teams is up there. Like, when the Ravens are good, because I feel like the last year was somewhat anomalous. They just lost a bunch of really close games. So I can't really, the Ravens are still up there. You just have a lot of really good AFC teams. And then when it's time for that to drop off, it really does drop off. Like, there's just a bunch of worthless AFC teams too. To where the NFC doesn't have that nearly as quickly. You don't have the great teams of the NFC being the best teams in the league, but you have more solid NFC teams. You don't even have that in the NBA. For the last few years, it's been Western Conference, and then the East is just worse. The East is worse and top heavy and not deep, which is fairly ridiculous when you think about it. Because, they're just geographically divided. How did one conference get to be so weak? You've been listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. More news from SEC Media Days as we get closer and closer to college football kickoff. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 24 hours.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd right here